Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today I have Dominic on the show. He's going to share his experience about growing up in a single parent home. Get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back. Good morning, Dominic, man. How you doing?
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for coming. And I know before we actually start, I know you was kind of talking about how you got up early, you read, you prayed, you stretched. And it's funny because I normally on the weekend, a lot of times go to bed late. I'm up watching Netflix or just doing whatever. But I actually went to bed pretty early and I woke up early, could not go back to sleep.
Hmm.
So I didn't work out, but I did read and pray and, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I get what you're saying. And I was wondering, like, is it due to this weather? I like this type of weather, believe it or not. I like the just when it's not as I like the sun, but this type of weather, I like when I could be at home and not really working, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like
Yeah.
driving in the rain. So
Yeah.
all right. So why don't we start again with you just introducing yourself, man, and we're gonna go from there.
Yeah. My name's Dominic Feliciano. I am a father of five. I have all young adults and one high school student. I have three boys, two girls. They range from the oldest of 23 and the youngest is 17. So all in between those ages right there. And I've been married. I'm married and we've been together for 16 years.
Nice. And a very, very, very supportive wife, which is really
Absolutely.
awesome. I want to ask you this. What is your nationality, your race? Because I
Yeah.
didn't want to make assumptions.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad's full Puerto Rican, my mom was full Mexican. So I like to say I'm either a Mexican or Puerto Mexican, however you want to call it.
Okay. Do you speak Spanish fluently or do you speak it at all?
I don't speak Spanish at all. Both my parents were fluent, but due to them separating, there was not another person in the household, and I could elaborate a little bit more about that, why we didn't learn.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, Dominic, how many siblings do you currently have overall?
Yeah. So currently, just my sister. My sister was older than me. So just an older sister. So it's me and my sister. She is 1 year and 2 days older than me. So my birthday's on August 9th and hers is on August 7th.
Wow.
So,
Are you serious?
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She was born in
Interesting.
84 and I was born in 85. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
So have you guys just throughout the years growing up or as adults, have you ever celebrated your birthday together?
Always, always in a single parent home.
Yeah.
We always did. My dad was like, we always celebrated it on the 8th. It was always
Oh,
in the
well,
middle. It'd be after her birthday, but before my birthday.
smart. Very, very smart.
Yeah.
And where were you guys born at?
Yeah, so we were born here in Yuba City. My dad was in the military. My dad grew up in New York. My mom grew up in Woodland. And then the Air Force ended up transferring him to Beale Air Force Base back in '76. And a couple years after that, he met my mom. And so they kind of settled in Yuba City after that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't, for some reason, I just thought that, and this is why we're interviewing and having this conversation.
Yeah.
I just assumed that you just moved to Yuba
Mhm.
in that area. I didn't know you were born and raised there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you ever lived outside of Yuba? Have you ever lived in the Sacramento area at all?
Yeah, in my adulthood, I've lived in several different places. I lived in San Jose for a year. I lived in Orangeville for about 3 years. I've lived in Orville for 6.5 years.
Wow.
I've lived in pretty different places, but I've always been drawn back to Yuba City because when you have a lot of kids,
Yeah.
it was more economically feasible. I knew the town. The town was growing, but it was small enough to kind of keep an eye on children. So, you
Yeah.
know, San Jose is a fast
Yeah.
place and environment. And, with having kids and things like that, I just wanted to make sure that I could um, be a part of their life a little bit more and extra, and have extra eyes on that too. So it was just
Yeah.
easier. We moved around, as a family but we centered back in Yuba City when I met Jessica, because Jessica lived out in Orville when I met her back
Okay.
then in 2009, but we didn't come back to Yuba City till 2017. So we kind of moved around all over places before coming back.
Oh, nice. And I've been to Yuba maybe about 2 or 3 times. I actually, believe it or not, like it. I'm naturally a city boy. I was born and raised in Chicago, but I just liked that particular area, the Woodland area. I don't
Hmm.
know, it's just something about it. I just like, because to me, it just slows things down a little bit,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's not so much fast pace and things like that. So I did enjoy it when I actually had to go down there for work a lot at a previous job I
Mm.
had, and I actually liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely it's got the city feel, but it's definitely agriculture and farm country. So you got a
Correct.
little bit of those both worlds combining. So the town is consistently always growing, and it's got land to kind of branch out on that. And so it's been changing since I was born and raised here, and it's consistently always growing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you, Dominic, growing up, in a single parent home? What was that like for you, just in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would say is there's always pros and cons to those situations. I think in my one of the things loved is that I didn't really know that like we were financially not stable and low
Yeah.
income, things like that nature. My dad always did his hardest and his best to always provide. He always had 3 jobs, so we always didn't go without. We didn't have necessarily what we wanted, but we always had necessarily what we needed.
Right.
And so the downside of those is that because of my dad always working so hard, working 3 jobs, graveyard shifts, the whole 9 yards to support, 2 little kids, is that he was always either asleep or gone at work. And so like my sister and I pretty much raised each other up.
Yeah.
I remember just since I was little, getting myself up, getting ready to go to school, taking myself to the bus stop, going to school, coming back. When I'd come back, my dad would be asleep already in the room, and we'd have to cook dinner and then wake him up so he could eat dinner so he could go to his night job. Like that was our responsibilities. I mean, little.
Yeah.
And so but he instilled a lot of great skills, life skills early on. Like by the time I was 12 years old, I mean, I could shine shoes, I could tie, I knew how to dress. I did a lot of independent things that young kids shouldn't have done or needed to
Right.
do or necessarily don't do now at a young age. So I had this sense of maturity very young on. And so I attracted older people because of the maturity, how I carried myself at a young age. My dad was ex-military, so everything was just standard, very rigid, very I want it this way and this way. Everything was black and white to him. There was no shades. You either are doing it or you're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was never a middle. So there was kind of a little bit, but I would say for the most part, one of the greatest things that my dad did is he always instilled confidence in us, my
Right.
sister and myself. You're gonna do something great. You're gonna be amazing. You're gonna be and he was always doing his best. One of the things he did was he put me and my sister in martial arts at the age of 5. And so we grew up doing martial arts, and that teaches a lot of discipline and teaches a lot of controlling anger. It teaches a lot of things. It builds confidence in yourself. And so we were able to exude that. So my childhood, for the most part, I would say, like, other than, my dad not really being around that much and my mom non-existent in our life, was actually a pretty great life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious to know, um, how old were you when your parents got a divorce? And do you remember your mom ever being a part of you guys' life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my mom actually walked out on our life when I was 2 years old and my sister was three. Um, I wasn't even old enough to remember her.
Yeah.
The very first time that I saw her, I was 9 years old. That was my very first time seeing her. My grandma, which is her mom, got remarried, and she came to the wedding. My mom also had an alcohol problem. So she was really intoxicated during that first time. So my dad wouldn't let me really see her that much
Um,
because he didn't want my first experience with her to be traumatic or to be triggered. And so my dad always protected us for the most part on that. And so I didn't really see her again until I was 13 again. And during those years. So my mom just said she was going to go to the store. I know this kind of sounds cliche, but it was really, she was going to walk to the store and she never came back.
yeah.
Like, that was really the true story on that. And she had met a person at work, and they kind of ran off together. And so I grew up just, I think even my littlest memories, I didn't even know that I had a mom or anything like that. I didn't
Yeah.
know the situation until was old enough to kind of hear the story and really like have that conversation too.
So when you met her at the age of 13 years old, what
Mhm.
was that like for you? And how did that meeting go for you as a son?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're young, and that you finally realize that you do have a mom and things like that, like, you want to you yearn for that.
Right.
You yearn to know her. You yearn to, as you get older and you
Mhm.
get sophisticated and you start building life skills, you start
Mhm.
creating independence, you start wondering who you are as a person.
Mhm.
And especially as a teenager, you start having a little bit of resentment towards that situation. And so by the time I was like 13 or 14, I had some questions. I had some questions I wanted to ask. Um, I was upset and angry. We go through all these phases as a young
Mhm.
teenager, trying to figure out who we are and really wondering why. I will say this, one of the coolest things that I still admire about my dad is my dad never said anything bad about her. Like,
Mhm.
even when I said something bad about her, even when I was, upset and just cussing and stuff like that, he
Yeah.
always was like, "Don't say that about your mom. Like, that's your mother, like that, like, she gave you birth, like, you wouldn't be here if it was for her." Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he always like kept it positive. And I didn't understand it at the time, but when you have children, you do understand why. It's because you don't want to build this framework around them, this
Yeah.
automatic framework towards them. So so I had some questions at the age of 13, but I was also angry too. And at the time, she wasn't prepared or ready to answer those questions. So it built some resentment for a long time. It really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had the opposite of uh, childhood growing up than you. I grew up with just my mom.
Hmm.
Dad wasn't there. Dad wasn't around. He was in the streets doing what he was doing.
Hmm.
And, my father was extremely abusive, physically abusive to my mom whenever he would come around. He would come
Right.
around maybe once a year,
Hmm.
do what he do, leave, go to jail. And, my mom became really physically and mentally
Hmm.
and verbally abusive to us. And I felt, to this day, I still feel like more so than me,
Right.
than the rest of her children.
Right.
And I started to get very resentful towards my dad for not being there. I've always wanted that relationship, that, male figure, at that time to teach me how to be a
Right.
man. When my mom was, physically and verbally and mentally abusive, I wanted him to come
Right.
and save me.
Right.
At the age of 11 years old, she put me out,
Right.
homeless and just all types. So I went into my adulthood with all these emotions
Hmm.
that needed to be addressed,
Right.
and I started to, seek different women
Hmm.
to satisfy that void, that
Right.
I was missing. I joined a college fraternity
Right.
because I needed to have some brothers that
Yeah.
I feel I could be close with and relate to and stuff. And I think through the years when I got saved and stuff like that, God had really taught me to forgive, but there were still some things that I had to,
Right.
work out, with my parents.
Right.
And things kind of got better with me and my mom, but my dad later on, I found him and I reconnected with him. This is actually in 2015.
Right.
And attempted to build a relationship with him. I
Right.
assisted him with getting a low income from whatever, it bought
Hmm.
furniture and da da da. And I
Hmm.
tried to keep that relationship going, but he wasn't in it.
Right.
It just, I think so much time had passed. And one thing I respect about this man is he told me flat out, I didn't want no kids.
Right.
He said, honestly, I didn't know how to be a father. He said, I didn't want y'all.
Hmm.
And this was me as an adult. And
Right.
I wasn't hurt. I actually respected that because that explains why he was so absent.
Right.
And so as time started moving forward, I'm buying shoes, mailing them to Illinois and all that.
Hmm.
And it just started being more of a disconnect. He started to draw back more and more and more and more.
Right.
So what I did was, instead of letting all those old hurts and pain and those negative feelings come back, I prayed and I felt peace. And I said,
Right.
well, Lord, I'm just gonna remove myself out the situation, which I did. I blocked him on everything.
Right.
And that was my way of protecting my peace and myself, because I know that he really didn't want to have this relationship, but he was
Right.
kind of like just going along with it because for the sake of him having a title being my father. And
Right.
I'm okay now.
Yeah.
I'm okay now.
Yeah. Our stories are very, very, as you're telling this story, my story is very similar to your story
Yeah.
on that. And I can relate that. So um around, after I saw her again at 13, um, I and she didn't have the answers, I started getting upset and I started, kind of being disobedient because my dad was super strict. Like he didn't let us talk on the phone. We couldn't go to friends' house. Friends couldn't come to our house. My dad was he was like overly protective,
Yeah.
but we were always together. It was always the three of us, like my sister, myself, and my dad. Like we would go to my dad's night job sometimes and help him like clean the church and do
I love it.
and the hair salon place, and we would always be together. We were inseparable. So as we started growing up, my dad didn't know how to separate that,
Yeah.
and so and allow us to like learn and fail forward and learn new things on our own, and so I started getting rebellious at the age of 16. Well, my mom came back into my life, and so she was like, well, you could live with me, and all
Yeah.
this yada yada. And I was like, yeah, I need to get out of this situation. She
Right.
promised me a car, she promised me all these hopes and dreams, and so I was like, great. So I moved out with her, but she lived in a different she lived in Salinas, and I was in Yuba City, and I wasn't about to go to Salinas. I didn't want to leave where I was at. So she said that she would move here to Yuba City and get a house and everything like that. So I had to stay with my grandma until she could transfer everything over. Well, I started living with my grandma. I'd see her every weekend until she was getting, and then it was every other weekend, and then it was once a month,
Hmm.
and then it was boom. And I was just living at my grandma's house, and like everything that she had promised had not
Hmm.
transpired. And so I just started. wilding out as a teenager,
Yeah.
to the point where my grandma was like, she kicked me out. Next thing you know, I'm drinking, I'm hanging out with older cousins, I'm doing the things you shouldn't be doing as a
Yeah.
teenager. And one day I found my all my clothes in a, because I was supposed to come back at curfew, and I'm walking back from my cousin's house who lived across the street, but we lived in the orchard areas because they used to do bonfires. He was a college student. And so I walked back, and all of my stuff is in a trash bag with all the doors locked.
Wow.
And I had to sleep outside.
Yeah.
And afterwards, she was just like, "You need to go back to your dad's. Only your dad is the one that can handle you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm too old to do this. I've already raised children." And so I had to go back to my dad. But there was a learning lesson for that, because my dad was crushed when I left, but it also allowed him to like understand that I'm growing up and I need to like learn these things and mature and things like that. So we had a better understanding from that too. And so after that, I didn't have a relationship with my mother again until I was about 23 or 24. She moved to Sutter, because my uncle owned a business there, um, Munger's. And so she worked at his store. And so we tried to, by that time I already had children, I had been married and divorced, I met Jessica.
Yeah.
And so we tried to like mend this relationship, um, but I still had a lot of resentment still.
Mhm.
So we didn't really talk for a long time. She didn't really want to be in the kids' life. It was just, her grandkids, my kids. So it was really hard.
Yeah.
And then it took a long time, because even when she was probably about 25 minutes away from where I lived, we still didn't see each other for a long time. And it wasn't until, man, I'd say I was 35 at the time, and she had moved to Idaho. And I
Mhm.
said, you know what, I'm gonna bite the bullet. Whatever's been gone, this is taken on for too long. Like, you know what I mean? And so came out to see her, and we just had a conversation and a talk. And I flew out there. I saw her for a week, and she's always had an addiction with alcohol, so
Yeah.
she wasn't doing too well. But she had a lot of resentment. She had a lot of guilt. Like,
Mhm.
and the funny thing is that she could never, even to the end of her passing away, she could never tell me the reason, like her side of the story.
Oh.
Like, it was so, unfortunate that
Yeah.
she just, it's like she held her guilt like a badge of honor,
Yeah.
and she just wanted to like hold on to that. And she couldn't really let it go. But finally I was just like, whatever happened in the past happened in the past. I'm here to build forward. I made this commute all the way to Idaho. I'm
Yeah.
staying here because I want to develop a relationship. And so I moved back, and we would call each other once a week. Then I would call her, and I would call her, and I'd say, hey, you can call me. But it was a one-way street. And then I just got busy again. And then 2 years later, um, in 2023, uh, she was not doing well. And so I came out to see her, and just handle like her last affair. She wasn't doing too well. In 2023, I ended up getting saved. And so having a faith life and just saying, you know what, this is my mom. She's not doing well. Her physical health is not doing well, because of the poor choices she's made
Yeah.
along the ways. I'm still gonna be there for her. So
Yeah.
I was able to be there for her. Me and my sister were able to handle like all of her affairs, everything that was about to happen. And then I get a call like 2 months later saying, hey, I don't think she's gonna make it. And so I ended up stopping. I was working for AMI office in October, so I ended up going down there in October, um, and really like just being there for her. And I kid you not, true story. Um, we're there, and I'm just telling her like she's not doing well. Like, she's totally yellow. She's got jaundice. She's just inflammating everywhere. She's got cirrhosis of the liver, from drinking her whole life. And so she wasn't saved. She wasn't a Christian. But I was able to have her say the prayer she wanted, that salvation. And so I said the prayer of salvation for her. She got saved that day. the next day I drove back, I called her on the phone the next day, and then she passed away that night.
Wow.
And so it was such a relief for me because I was at peace the time that she did.
Yeah.
Um, and just knowing that like this was just her, I had to come to the conclusion that
Mhm.
this is her. This
Yeah.
is who she is. This is who she's about. And I just need to accept that. I can't put expectations on
Mhm.
who I want her to be. I have to just accept her for who she is. And she wasn't someone who wanted to be a parent, and that's okay because the best thing that she did was give me life, and I was able to give
Yes.
the kids life. And
Yes.
so she did exactly what God had made her do, and she took the path and the choices she wanted to. And so I'm thankful for just all the good things in her, in the life that she did for me. And
Yes.
once I was able to like transition to that, it gave me such peace in life.
Mhm.
It really did. I wasn't holding on any grudges. I wasn't
Yes.
holding anything against her. I wasn't I wasn't shamed. I wasn't embarrassed. I just said, I love you for who you are, and this is you, you know, and I can accept that, you know.
Yes.
And so it was just a really transitional and pivot moment for me. But it took, you know, it took me into my 30s to
Yeah.
figure that out. So
Yeah. It's hard. Like, I hope people that watch this particular show, this particular topic specifically, um, really get um something out of it.
right,
Even if they did come from a two-parent home,
right,
because when you're in situations like that, for me at least, I didn't realize how deep the mental health portion was rooted in me. I
right,
didn't realize how I was using different women's different, like I was in different relationships,
right,
not really knowing my behavior was the root of me having a lack of relationship with my mom or my dad and things like that.
right,
I didn't know that,
right.
and I didn't know that I was insecure areas. I didn't know that I dealt with rejection. All this
Yeah,
stuff not coming out, and I would just, I had to deal with it. I really had to
right.
deal with it. But I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How did your mom, situation not being there, whatever? How was that like for your sister? Because I want to
Yeah.
touch on that.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that, you know, we had our dad, which is very rare in society to have your dad and not your mom
We're
because
gonna talk about that. Yes. Oh yeah.
you know, and so that was rare. So it worked out in my benefit. I For me, because my dad showed me how to be a man, how to
Right.
a lot of great attributes. But where my dad lacked was how to show my sister how to be a woman and
Right.
that nurturing side. So my sister grew up very tomboyish. She grew
Yeah.
up very tomboyish because all of her role models, you know, from her little brother to her dad, these are your first role models as your parents, you know, and what you see, they were all males. And
Right.
so, you know, she started martial arts and
Yeah.
started doing that. She had a knack for like dance and ballet, but like as she started getting older, she didn't really wear makeup. She didn't have
Yeah.
anyone to teach her how to do that.
Yeah.
She didn't have anyone to help dress or I remember one of my dad's friends having to help my sister like figure out bra sizes and that, and like
Yeah.
my dad called a neighbor over when she started her period, like you know
Yeah.
it was just like
Yeah.
all the things that ladies go through and transition to, like my you know, for my sister, like a woman figure was absent.
Yeah.
And so like it almost was like she was alone in that
Yeah.
sort of sense, in that
Mhm.
realm right there, having to figure this out with either strangers or
Mhm.
having to figure this out on your own, you
Mhm.
know. And so I think a lot of times that changed us. And you know, the funny thing is my um like that same kind of transition, like my wife and I have grown up in broken homes.
Yeah.
And so like she kind of had the similar thing with her dad walking away, where she
Yeah.
yearned for a male figure,
Uh-huh.
you know, on life. And I was the same way. You know, my dad taught me all the attributes of hard work, integrity, like self-development, things of that nature. My dad was always like highly intelligent in the Air Force, doing really well, but like and hard. You know, he was always tough. You know, but I didn't have that nurturing side, so I yearned for that. So that's one of the things that I started. This is why probably I had children super young at the age of 18, because I
Yeah.
was yearning for a female figure, something like
Mhm.
I always tell people I had mommy issues, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
so, you know, and those are real things, you know, because of your experience, your life experience, you have those things. And so I was yearning for all of that everywhere else, you know,
Yeah.
to find identity in that. And so it was really a hard transition. But for my sister, I think she got, you know, a harder end than I did because it was just absent. There was just no absent. And I think she missed out on a lot of opportunities to learn and develop from a female. And especially one, not only just a female, but someone she loved and trusted. You know,
Yeah.
she didn't have that in her life. And so
Yeah.
that was probably tough for her to go through, I'm assuming on that. And so that's why she had a lot of characteristics as a
Mhm.
young boy. You know,
Yeah.
like
No,
a
I
lot of
get that.
characteristics.
I get that. And I wanted to ask that question too, because it's the same with like, well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
specifically focus on my sisters.
Hmm.
They saw my mom um having poor choice in men.
Hmm.
My mom, for lack of better terms, was I would like to compare her to, I would say, a prostitute
Hmm.
without the title.
Right. Right.
This me being transparent.
Hmm.
And my sister and they saw that.
Right.
So my older sister specifically, when she started to date, she will always get involved with these men who meant her no good.
Right.
Cheat on her, dog her out, take her
Right.
money, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
And but she was more, my older sister was more the relationship type. She
Right.
just picked the wrong guys
Right.
and moved to the next guy and blah 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 so forth.
Right.
But my sister under her was more like my mom. She just, just out there bad, sleep with
Hmm.
different type of men,
Hmm.
very strong will, and
Right.
but they wanted that father figure in their life, which
Yeah.
caused them to choose the wrong partner, like
Absolutely.
all throughout their life, you know.
Right.
But they had that example, which was my mother, because my mother and my father, she's never been married.
Right.
She just hopped from man to man to man to man to man. And that was their example, you
Hmm.
know. And I remember maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, my sister, she was incarcerated
Hmm.
and she called me crying and she was really having a breakdown because she
Right.
didn't understand why our father was not there. She
Hmm.
felt like, if he would been here, I wouldn't be in jail. It was
Right.
just all these mixed emotions. And for me, to be honest with you, my heart was kind of cold talking. I'm like, well, he's never been there.
Right.
Like, I mean, girl, you should know this by now. Like, why are you having this meltdown now?
Right.
And you're incarcerated. You don't need to be thinking about him. But I had to realize after I got that call, because I was angry, because it was
Right.
like, but I realized after I got that call, God started dealing with me because he started sharing with me in my spirit that those are her feelings and emotion. This is what she was going through
Right.
with your dad being absent from her life. Yours is different. You have
Hmm.
it in your way. And I really, and I felt bad
Right.
you know, I didn't learn that my sister dealt with depression. From that conversation, the next time we talked, she was telling me she dealt with depression. She had been suicidal growing up. I
Yeah.
knew none of this.
Yeah.
All because this man, my
Right.
father, was absent in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely it's a big part in most people's relationship, and they don't really realize that, you know, as a parent, you're a 24/7 role model, and so
Yeah.
your kids are very observant to everything that they're doing. Um, and when it's funny because you know, I teach an intentional parenting class on Thursdays at the Wellness Center. And we talk about like 24/7 role model, what that looks like. And one of the signs is like, if you're seeing your kids running like lying or things like that, like
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you're the one who taught them that,
Yeah.
either intentionally or unintentionally. Most of the time it's unintentionally, but they hear you on a conversation where we're supposed to go to the neighbor's house to help them move, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so busy with work and you didn't go to work today, you know, like
Right.
and things of that nature. And so like kids are watching, kids are talking, kids are understanding, and they're learning all of these uh, all of these
Yes.
characteristics through you and through your lenses and on that. And so, you ever hear a person say like, "Oh man, that apple doesn't fall far from the tree." It's because
Yeah.
you literally taught them
Yeah.
everything you have shown them on that, and so it's really contributed to that.
Yeah. What do you see like right now with you and your wife raising your all's children?
Mhm.
What do you see that you was missing
Yeah,
coming from a one parent home? Because obviously you guys are able to provide as a cohesive unit
yeah.
to parent y'all children in a way that you and I didn't get growing up. So what do you see that your children are getting that you and your sister didn't get?
Yeah. So, I think, the funny thing is like my dad was a single parent, but he never dated and never remarried.
Oh,
He didn't date. I mean, like when I say that it was just the three of us, like anytime one of us was missing and like anyone saw, they'd be like, "Where's your dad? Where's your sister?
yeah,
Where's your brother?" Like because we were just like, they just knew the Feliciano, that's the three of them.
yeah,
And so, I never like knew what a healthy relationship looked like, and I yearned for a female figure in my life.
yeah,
And so, my first marriage, my first wife was 10 years older than me when
yeah,
I married. She was ready to settle down, have kids. I thought I was straight out of 17, 18.
yeah,
Um, and I wasn't. And so we were just on different spectrums, like
yeah,
mentally, everything. And so that didn't work out. And then I met Jessica in 2009, and and she had children from a previous relationship because she was married before with three children. Her ex-husband was an alcoholic and physically abusive.
yeah,
And so when we met, we coexisted, and building our family to like coexist, so like a blended family blending in. But one of the things that I was so rigid that I didn't know patience, I
mhm,
didn't know empathy, I didn't know understanding. These were things that, like, my wife, she's so strong, she's a strong woman, and she
mhm,
has so much patience for me because we were children raising kids, like we were kids
yeah,
raising kids. And she was like the sandpaper and I was this hard-headed rock, and she
yeah,
just had to like sand me down, in
yeah,
areas I was super rigid and super sharp at. I was a great discipliner. I mean,
yeah,
because my dad was a great discipliner. So,
right,
like that worked out because she was the nurturer. So we kind of fell into that role very quickly and easily. It's like, oh, cool. You don't mind talking to the kids about tough conversations,
yeah,
I'm gonna give you that,
yeah, yeah,
Um, but and then she helped me a lot with empathy, understanding, and maybe sometimes taking time out, and patience. Patience is something that most men don't have,
right,
and it takes a strong woman to help you mold those patience and to be understanding in that. And I'm not saying that we're ever going to perfect that but man, like, I know that now as I get older, I strive for more patience. I
yeah,
strive for that. Like, I try to seek to understand instead of just acting on actions on that. So that side, love, I mean, to coexist, to show what a healthy relationship looks like for our kids, and really to see the self value in them too. I think that was one of the things, is that, like, when you see a healthy relationship, it's not all just like perfect. It's
yeah,
struggles too, but how do you overcome those struggles? Like, how do
yeah,
you grow and how do you develop that? Like, my wife and I have been together for 16 years, but we've separated. We've gone back together.
yeah,
We've worked things out. One of the things that our kids can say is, man, they've been through a lot, but
yeah,
they still stick it out. Like, we show them that, and so I always tell people relationships probably the hardest thing to anything,
yeah,
because it takes two people fully committed. And
yeah,
really, it doesn't work when one's committed and one's not, and the other one's not, or vice versa. You have to both be very intentional about committing this. And so when we kind of played around for about 8 years, back and forth, back and forth. But when we married in 2017, like, we closed all doors,
yes,
and that was like, the marriage was symbolic to that. We didn't have a great lavish wedding. We just had a
yeah,
church wedding because we knew what we were committing ourselves to. It wasn't just to another wedding, and we were committing like, hey, this is it for us. Like, we're going to work this out for the rest of our life, no matter what. We're committed to this. And so I think
Yeah.
when we were both committed to that, and we were like, okay, we're married, we're husband and wife, we're going to commit at this. No one's backing out of this thing. Like we really started just like really developing and really seeking that and understanding that. We took parenting classes, started reading parenting books, started reading marriage books, like the 5 love languages, understanding what my wife love language is. I can tell you a great story really quick. So my wife is a natural nurturer. She learned from her mom to always serve her husband. So she learned that as a child, always
Yeah.
serving. Even when I go to see Jessica's parents, her mom's always serving everyone, always serving, always
Yeah.
cooking. And so that's just instilled in Jessica. And so like me, I've grown up kind of always doing my own thing. So I don't really, I mean, I like it. I mean, I appreciate it, but it's not necessary for me.
Right.
But that's how Jessica shows love. And so like she would get so frustrated with us because she was showing love and I wasn't reciprocating it as love. But it wasn't until like we talked with some mentors and coaches who have been married for 35, 40 years, talked about, hey, you guys need to like read these books and study up on that. Try the 5 love languages, start with that, really understand what your guys' love language is. And it wasn't until we started reading that is where we really realized that, like, we had a conversation one time where we were sitting down with this married couple, and she was like, I do all these things for him and he doesn't appreciate it and things like that. And I said, that's not the way I feel love. There's 2 ways I feel love: words of affirmation, always encouraging me, always ensuring me, and physical touch. Those are the 2 things that like show me love.
Yeah.
You can do all the acts of service you want,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to reciprocate that as love. So until you find that person's love language and then attack that love language, it's not about what makes you love. Like it's finding their love language. And so she stopped doing that stuff because she does it because she wants to, but she stopped that. But she now knows that like for me to feel loved, it's that way. And then for her love language is quality time.
Yeah.
And just time spent, quality. It doesn't have to be, you've seen us multiple times eating at lunch, sitting together and having lunch.
Yes.
Those little moments, like that of just quality time, taking the busyness out of our day just to sit down and have lunch with each other, from 2 different spectrums, going on walks together, going to the gym together. She's not materialistic. She's very simple, but we could have a good time even at McDonald's, sitting down and just having a McDonald's meal. She wants quality time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized what she was asking that our life started to change for the better on that. And once I knew that her love language was quality time, like things just started getting better and just really working on that. But our kids see that now. They see those things. And so our kids can benefit now from seeing what a healthy relationship looks like on that. And so just going through those.
I could say right now, I absolutely love that you shared that story. So I got another show coming with you, but we're gonna talk about that offline.
Okay.
That story.
Okay.
But I love that because a lot of times people don't take the time to put in the work.
Right.
Because I'm like you in a sense where my love language is, touching. I could fix my own food. I can go
Right.
get my own clothes and all that. And so we're very similar in some of those ways. So I get it.
Yeah.
With I just, man, like it's so much that you just shared that you've overcame to get to this space now where you have a healthy family structure with a good woman, some great kids, despite of where you came from.
Right.
You're meaning a single parent home. I want to ask you though, I want to talk about this too, because you said something earlier about a lot of times it's mostly the men who leave and the women raise the children.
Right.
And as you was talking about your dad earlier, I honestly, I couldn't help but to think like, I have a lot of respect for this man, and I don't know him personally just based
Right.
on what you're saying, because the fact that he has several jobs, you guys are always together, and whatever his reason for not getting a relationship, to me,
Mm,
it has to be part of, I want to focus on my kids,
right.
you know, and he's one of the ones males
Yeah.
that breaks the stigma when it
Right.
comes to single parents, because sometimes we as men, we don't always have the tools to
Right.
raise children, because we're out there, we chasing women, or
Right.
we're doing all type of stuff, but he chose to stick it out with his two kids, and I respect that a lot.
Yeah,
I-
absolutely. It was one of those things I look back as I became a father, and I didn't realize it until you have children, your own children, that you
yeah,
realize why they do the things that they do
yeah,
and what's the reason for that. And yeah, I think at the same time, I think he just made the commitment that he was all in and he was going to do everything and to one, protect us, but two, make sure we have the best life that he could give us possibly on
yeah.
that. And so he put all his dreams, all his aspirations,
Oh,
everything he had on the back burner. Even relationships, like he
wow.
stopped everything. And I know that there was times where he was very, when we were younger, he was very depressed,
Yeah,
lonely, and things like that. But he never really showed it that much. He would get very short fused and tempered and things like that. But we never knew about it. We
yeah,
never knew when he went through those cycles or anything like that. He did his best to not bring that out on that. So I admired him and respected him for that even more when I became a father of my own. And it's then I you just instant everything just clicks. You now know why they do the things that they do.
yeah. Is your dad currently with us, still living?
No, he passed away in 2017. So I was in San Jose working. I was a district manager for a financial institution, and
Okay,
when he passed, that's how I ended up moving back to Yuba City. I was
okay,
in San Jose working there. But the funny story is he had pleurisy of the liver, was not a drinker, and was not a smoker. Both my parents both had pleurisy of the liver. So both my parents are deceased. My dad passed away in 2017, and then my mom passed away in 2023 from the
okay.
same cancer. But yeah, and it's just kind of crazy to have that whole aspirations. I think I took it super hard when he passed away because he was like my hero. He was like everything. Like I couldn't even see him in the hospital. Like that's how
Yeah,
hard it was for me to see him. My sister actually stepped up to the plate and actually handled all of his affairs because
yeah,
I was just not. I was in disbelief.
yeah,
Like when you look up to someone as you have, because I didn't look up to him until I had my own children, and then
right,
it just like boom. This is why you do all the things you do. Like
yeah,
you really loved us. You really like, what I mean? Because you start doing the same thing for your own children.
right,
And so like I was in such disbelief when he was like, because I just thought he was a superhero. He could just handle
right,
everything. This will pass. This will, what I mean? He'll be back on his feet. But when it wasn't going away, I just couldn't. And I
yeah,
was taking on a lot as a DM for my job and things like that. And so, um, I took it the hardest. I went through a little depression after he
yeah,
passed away and things like that. But my sister handled all his affairs. They were almost. It was kind of so crazy. They were so close because we were so close as a family. They almost acted like husband and wife towards the end because
yeah,
like
yeah,
they were just she was in everything and in all his
yeah,
business. But it was just kind of crazy on that. But yeah, it took me. I went through that. I went through that depression super hard on that. But that was where everything changed because his passing away is what helped me because me and actually Jessica were separated for a year when
yeah,
he was going through that, and so he ended up bringing us back together. He ended up making me see that life was too short and that you're out here chasing money, trying to better your life
mhm,
and trying to, make a name for yourself when the important things in life is like family, children,
mhm,
those things. And so that's really the start of like me and Jessica in 2017 and him passing away of like
yeah,
our life changing. And then when he passed away, I'm sorry, he passed away in 2016, but it was in December. In 2017, Jessica moved to Yuba City with us. We got back together, we married, and like it shifted because
Yeah.
with him passing away, it really made me realize how much time was so short and precious, and that the important things in life are the people that are in front of you, because
Right.
you can't, I've never seen a U-Haul truck behind a hearse. Like
Right.
you can't take the things with you when you're gone, they're gone. Everyone who is slowly to pass away, all they want to be around is family. All
That's
they want
right.
to be around with is loved ones. All they want to be around with people they love, And so it was those things that made me realize that like this time is short. So I need to really just change the way I think and start bettering and actually show the people that I love how much they are important to me.
Yeah, man, you always got me tearing up a little bit with this one. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Whew, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder what it was like for your dad. Um, like what it was like for him to like let y'all go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just the whole situation. Cause I don't know, this whole story touched me because I love the fact that he loved you guys. You guys were so close.
Yeah.
But I wonder what it was like, not so much of his passing, but as you guys became adults, like what it was like. I wonder what it was like for him
Hmm.
to inwardly say, okay, I have to let them grow up, even though he had
Yeah.
put so much on hold and sacrificed so much. Because you guys were his life,
Right.
And I wonder what was that like for him. And then the passing part, knowing that you guys was like,
Yeah.
his family,
Yeah.
I don't know. I could just only wonder what that was like for him and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I can say that, um, me leaving and coming back at the age of 16 was a big wake up call of him realizing that like we're growing up and that we
Right,
need to experience life, and he needs to like kind of loosen the reins a little bit so that way we can like learn things and experience things and
right.
make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. That was a huge thing that helped me and my dad actually, for him to see me not as a little boy anymore but
Yeah,
like as a young man, like growing and developing. And so like by the time 18 rolled around, I was eager to just like, my dad had instilled so much confidence and so much things. Like school wasn't for me at the time.
yeah,
And so I went straight into the workforce,
yeah,
and met my ex-wife, had children. Like, so I was like, boom, like I was out. My sister kind of lingered for a while, and they had a relationship. Their relationship always grew. My sister has never lived outside of Yuba City. So
yeah,
almost their relationship, like they were just together for the whole time.
yeah,
And so like he got to see like her marry and have children, and he was always a part of her life all the way to the end. Like, um, and so like I think with that aspect on that, like part of him enjoyed that time with my sister and growing up, but the other part of him, like I think he was in disbelief because it was like, okay, now what do I do with my life?
right,
Like
right.
what's the next chapter for me? And so I know that there was some like depression and some sadness to that, because it was like, you know, like my wife is always going to be our, we're raising kids right now, as a couple, so that way our kids can like,
Yeah,
be productive members in society, have their own families, but we have each other for the rest of our lives. And so having that partner, it's like, okay, let's start the next chapter now it's time for us, you know what I mean? And so my dad just kind of, he was just like, what do I do now? And so he was in this limbo area for a very long time, like, what do I do next? And I
yeah,
could, I'm glad that my sister was there around for him, because I was young, I was ambitious, and I was eager, and I was ready to go see the world and
yeah,
conquer it.
yeah,
That sort of sense.
yeah. Like most young men are.
Yeah.
Um, did you guys have like family members? Like, did your dad have brothers and sisters and things around?
Yeah. So all of my dad's side of the family is on the East Coast.
Okay,
Every single member is on the East Coast.
okay,
So the Air Force kind of brought him out to California. So we're on the West Side. So all of my mom's side of the family, lives in California, but I don't really have a relationship with them
Uh-huh.
um, because they choose not to. And
Yeah.
it's not that they did. It's, mom walked out and they were just like in disbelief, and they just didn't feel comfortable, and they didn't get along with my dad, and so that just kind of caused a wedge, because my dad was like very protective on us,
Yeah.
and yeah, and he was very, I mean, he was a Puerto Rican young man,
Yeah.
like in the Air Force. He's very tough, and
Yeah.
hard to talk to at Sturban at times. He was 26 at the time,
Yeah.
so and so we didn't build a relationship with them outside of that. I know them, I've seen them in passing, I've seen them in weddings and things like that, but as far as like day to day and help me grow up and raise and stuff like that, they were pretty absent.
Okay. Well, we have run out of time, man. This was definitely a good one. I mean, tearing up. I don't think I would tear it up on a show. This was, it was, hit home for sure.
Yeah,
So I really appreciate you sharing this story.
yeah,
I hope when people watch it, I hope, like I said earlier, I hope even if they come from a two-parent home, I know
yeah,
the ones that come from a single-parent home will definitely relate to this. But for those who watch this, who may now be going through with some of the things that you and I shared, I hope that
right,
this can educate them, help them, encourage them.
right.
But I appreciate you sharing your story, man. It means a lot, brother, for sure.
Thank, thank you so much, Jesse, for having me. And I'm really grateful I had the opportunity to just not only share my story, but just just encourage somebody, whoever is going through those things or different stages in their life. As that is that, look for the positive in life and look for those blessings, and just hate in the heart and stuff like that can just grow bitterness. And so, whatever type of relationship you are, make amends, move forward, and just realize that you can't change people. You just have to just accept them. And once you've accepted them, like, life for you gets better. It really does.
For sure. And thank you.
Okay.
And that's it for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular segment, if you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you would like a DVD copy of this show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.